Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. As you can see by the title, I am back with another story time. You guys have really been enjoying these stories that I've been telling so far, so I thought why not continue and tell another story to you guys. So basically, as you saw by the title of this video, it's when astral projecting goes wrong. And in today's video, it is going to be Maurice's story. So if you're interested in watching this or hearing this story, watching the video, basically stay tuned. So Maurice is a young gentleman around the age of 25 who grew up in a rural town. He was very quiet and very smart, and yet very well mannered, if I can talk today. And so really he was just trying to bounce from city to city just to see where he could find a job that would basically suit what he is looking for, basically where he can make enough money to live off of, and hopefully in hopes of finding love. Now, the thing about Maurice is that he had a very fond interest in astral projecting, and he was actually like reading about it, studying about it, how to do it, and he just really wanted to get into doing that type of work when he was asleep. So of course he went ahead, he watched his videos on YouTube, listened to different stories of people who have done astral projecting, and just basically built a very big, strong interest to doing that work. So one day Maurice was heading to work and he saw this very beautiful woman, and her name was Mary. And Maurice was just very taken back by how beautiful Mary was and how she was such a kind person to him. But it was to the point where he was so taken by her beauty that he was actually shy and afraid to talk to her. Like, he really had an interest in dating her, but he was so scared of talking to her that all he could really do was just be like, hello, how was your day? It's beautiful weather outside. Just basically keeping everything surface level because he was actually so scared of Mary. And of course, Mary was just nice. You know, she would answer his questions and talk to him. And as they passed by each day, they would just speak to each other and basically keep things moving. So that night when Maurice decided to go to sleep, he was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and test out the astral projecting skills to see if I've learned anything and to see what all I can do. Now, after the first few initial tries of doing this, Maurice saw that he could only basically, like, he would leave his body, but he wouldn't be able to leave his home. So basically he would just like float around. He would see his body sleep, but he would float around his home, just basically trying to get the grasp of everything and to see, you know, what it exactly feels like to be, quote unquote, outside of your body, astral projected. So as time went by, Maurice decided that he wanted to develop his skills even more, to the point where he could leave his home and travel to different places within his city. So what he did was, you know, he built up his skills, and each time he would go to sleep, he would make sure that he astral projected in some form or fashion. Now, it got to the point where he was like traveling to his neighbors' homes, looking in their windows while they were asleep, going to the stores, or just seeing random people, you know, do their business late at night. So Maurice decided that one day he wanted to visit Mary while she was at home, basically outside of work, just to see exactly what she was like. And another thing, he was so fascinated with her, he was like, I really want to see how Mary is outside of the working atmosphere. So one night, Maurice decided to astral project to Mary's home. And how he found out where she lives is basically he had called in from work and fell asleep during the afternoon hours, and basically astral projected to his job so that he could follow Mary home to see exactly where she lives. So that's how he was able to find out where she stays at. And so he went ahead, excuse my sniffing, my allergies are bothering me, but he went ahead and followed Mary home one day and just showed up to her home. Of course, she had no clue he was there, but he just basically watched her go about her evening. He watched her drink her wine. He watched her take a shower, just basically like any and everything that Mary was doing. And meanwhile, the whole time falling more and more deep in love with Mary. And of course, Mary had absolutely no clue that all of this was going on. So as Maurice would go to work and Mary would go to work as well, it was the usual. They would speak. How are you doing? Hey, how was your evening? You know, I hope you have a good day, such, and kept things moving. So time went by, and Maurice had really gotten to the point where he was like going to see Mary almost every single day, every single evening, every single night. There were some times where he would just stand there while she was sleeping and just watching her sleep. And he was just so infatuated with Mary, but yet in reality, he couldn't talk to her. Like, he was just so afraid and scared to talk to her because he was afraid that she wasn't interested and that she would turn him down. So he thought, of course, this is a good way for me to be with Mary without actually being with Mary. So there was one night where Maurice had decided to, of course, astral project to Mary's home, but this time Mary ended up having a guest come over. And of course, it was a male that came over to visit her. So Maurice was upset about it, of course, because he was like, I've fallen in love with Mary. Mary's supposed to be with me. She's mine. Why is this other man in here, visiting her and talking to my woman? And so Maurice watched Mary and her friend, like they sat, they had dinner together, watched a movie, laughed and cuddled and just basically had a really good time together. And after Mary's friend left, Mary, of course, was very happy. She was smiling. She was dancing through her home and stuff. And like Maurice saw all of this and he was just like, wow, this guy really makes her happy. But he's thinking in his head, I'm the one that's supposed to be making her happy, not this guy. And so he was just like, no, this can't happen. Like, I need to find some way to stop this from happening. So Maurice drifted back to his home, back into his body and stuff. And when he woke up, he was just really upset over what he had saw. And so the next day when he came across Mary at work, he spoke as usual, but he was just kind of looking at her as if she had cheated on him. And so, of course, Mary was just like, what's going on? Or is everything okay? And Maurice had to realize, I actually did not see this happen. I can't let her know that I can't let her know what I know of what I saw, because she has no clue that I've been astral projecting to her home and basically stalking her, if you want to put it in that sense. So they went on about their day. Maurice went home. Mary went back to her home. And so Maurice decided that he was going to still go ahead and keep a watch on Mary. He kept visiting her at night to the point where Mary had her friend who came back over. And of course, Maurice was upset. But this time, Mary and her friend got, quote unquote, physical. So it was like Maurice watched this man basically make love to Mary. And it just really, really made him angry. Like, he was fuming to the point where he was seeing red, because he was just like, she's cheating on me. Like, why is she doing this to me? She knows how I feel about her. And who is this guy that's going to come in and just take Mary away from me? So it got to the point where Maurice was just like, I can't take this anymore. So he's like, I have to get rid of Mary's friend. I don't know how. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to get rid of him in some form or fashion. So he went ahead and quickly drifted back off to his home to go back to his body so he could actually physically sit up and think about the things that he needed to do in order to get rid of Mary's friend. But this time when he came back home to his body, he noticed that his body was not there. So he's looking around his home like, where the hell is my body? Like, it was just here. I left it here. Like, where did it go? And so he was looking in the bathrooms, looking in the bedrooms, just looking all over the house to see where his body had drifted to, because he thought maybe his body had gotten up to use the bathroom. I know, weird. Had gotten up to use the bathroom and got stuck in the bathroom. Like, what happened to his body? And so he ended up flying by a window and he noticed that his body was walking down the street. So Maurice went ahead, of course, followed his body outside and was yelling at it, like, what are you doing? Stop. Where are you going? And his body is his face turned and looked at him. But the thing is, it's even though it was his body and his face, the expression that his face was giving him was one that was unlike or unknown to Maurice. It looked as if something had taken over his body, and his mind was possessed. He had just a complete expression on his face that actually kind of scared Maurice, to the point where he was like, stop, what are you doing? And then all of a sudden his body just took off running, to the point where it was just running almost quicker than like any regular human could run. And so Maurice was drifting up after his body, like, wait, stop, where are you going, come back. And it's like he noticed that his body was running towards Mary's home, and he's like, no, stop, what are you doing? And it's like his body was just running, just getting it to Mary's home. And it's like all of a sudden his body just stopped, and he stood in front of Mary's home. But it's like Maurice was like, he was basically trying to stop his body, but every time he tried to grab his body, of course his hand would go through his body, just like how you see in the movies where, like, there's a soul is trying to grab something physical, but it goes through the physical aspect, basically, or the physical being. So it's like his body stopped there, and then all of a sudden just ran and ducked behind a bush. And Maurice is just, looking there, floating, basically looking like, okay, what's going on? And all of a sudden he saw his friend, Mary's friend, leaving Mary's home. And the next thing you know, Maurice saw his body get up and basically attack Mary's friend. Now, Mary had already closed the door at this time, and she had basically gone up to shower and do her thing. So she had absolutely no clue what was going on outside of her home. So Maurice was standing there watching his body attack Mary's friend, to the point where Maurice's body pulled out a knife. And Maurice is just starting yelling like, stop, what are you doing? Don't do that, stop. And so his body pulled up the knife, of course, and was getting ready, to get the Michael Myers on, basically. And it's like Maurice was just trying his best to stop his body from such and such Mary's friend. And it got to the point where his body was just going crazy, to the point where he ended up unaliving Mary's friend. And so, of course, Maurice his body had blood all over and stuff like that. And it's like after his body got done basically ending Mary's friend's life, it just kind of felt limp, like it just fell to the ground. And Maurice was looking at everything in shock, of course. Like, he was like, what's going on? Like, he was basically waiting to see if his body would get back up, because he didn't know exactly what was in it, what had basically, with everything that had transpired, he didn't know, like, should I go back in my body? Can I go back in my body? I can't just stay out here, because this is basically a crime scene that I, in a sense, my body has committed. And so Maurice kind of froze, and he just like, well, I can't leave my body here. So he went ahead and jumped back into his body, and of course sat up and took off running back home. Now, at this time, when he got home, he was just really, of course, upset, anxious, and was wondering, like, I just unalived somebody. What can I do? I can't be here. I can't be seen and stuff. And so, of course, Mary ended up finding out what had happened. She ended up calling the police. And of course, the police were asking her, like, did you see what happened? Mary, of course, was like, no, I don't know what happened. I was inside my home. I didn't see anything. I just came outside and I see my friend here on the ground. He's gone. And so Mary thought about it. She was like, but I do have cameras around my home, and I do have like the doorbell camera. So the police went ahead and asked her to just basically play the video of what had, the last few hours of from her footage on the cameras and stuff. And so they ended up watching it, and they saw Maurice, well, his body, quote unquote, unalive her friend. And Mary was like, oh, I know him. Like, I work with him. I know this person. I can't believe he did this. How does he even know where I live? Like, she was just basically completely flustered. Of course, she was upset, and she just was in disbelief as far as what had transpired. And the fact that quiet Maurice had did this to her friend. So the police ended up driving to Maurice's home. And when they were knocking on the door, of course, Maurice was like, I can't be here. They're going to take me to jail. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So what he did, and yes, some of y'all may say it's dumb or stupid, but you probably see it coming. Maurice decided that he was going to force himself to fall back asleep and astral project out of his body, so that when the police come to get him, basically it'll be, just his vessel. It'll be like as if he's passed away, and the police won't know what had gone on, and therefore Maurice would not be in trouble. So he forced himself asleep, popped a few sleeping pills, and basically astral projected out of his body right at the time when the police had kicked down his door. So of course the police are looking confused because here they are. They see Maurice, but in their head, he's no longer living. They can't figure out what had happened, what had gone wrong. Like it was to the point where like Maurice, his body didn't even have a pulse. Like it wasn't even as if he was like actually sleeping or not. It was like as if it was just a dead body. And so they ended up taking Maurice's body away, of course, to the coroner and to have things checked out as far as to see exactly why, like what happened within that short period of time. And meanwhile, Maurice was still floating around in his home looking, just basically like, well, what do I do now? Because I don't have a body. Like, what do I do? Do I just float here for the rest of my life? Like, I don't know. And so he thought to himself, he was like, well, I might as well go and see Mary. I know it's crazy, you guys, but he was like, I might as well go and see Mary. So that's exactly what he did. He drifted on over to Mary's home and basically saw her, upset, crying and stuff. And he just sat there and looked at her because he was upset himself because he didn't want things to turn out this way. And so he sat and watched her cry, basically watched her grieve and go through everything that had just happened with her friend. So like weeks had gone by and Maurice was just basically staying at Mary's home. And of course, Mary had absolutely no clue of him staying there. But it's like he was like, well, I'm still with her. In the end, even though I'm not physically with her, I'm with her. And that's exactly what he did. He stayed with her until she just basically decided that, she was just going to be by herself. Well, at the time, we'll put it that way. So yeah, that is my story as far as when it comes to astral projecting and it going wrong. And I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, do feel free to leave them in the comment section. And I thank you guys for returning back to my channel, and you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.